Namaskar. Welcome to Prakash on Basics. I am Prakash Zog. After a brief idea of what the term Darshan means, that means the basic Indian philosophy, let us look into the characteristics and the types of Darshans that are available. Please realize that they did not arise overnight, but were the outcome of serious thought processes, contemplation by a number of thinkers over a very large time span. Including the Jain and the Buddhist thinkers, the core source of knowledge was the same, that is from the Vedas, that is the Shruti, Smruti, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, the Bhagavad Gita, and many other literary forms. Out of these, the set of three scriptures known as the Prasthana Trayi, that is the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutra, these formed the base of the thought processes that a number of later philosophers looked into. Rather than just quoting the scriptures, they relied more on the interpretation and logic that was applied to a number of sutras. So Indian philosophy then became more complex and more complicated. These sutras had four basic criteria. They were supposed to be alpakshara, using minimum words as possible. Asandigdha, unambiguous, without a doubt, precise, exact in their meanings. Then third, they were to explain the Sara Tattva, that is the essence of the concept, and explaining all the Vishwato Mukha, that means all the aspects of the concept. When these were applied to sutras, the sutras started getting more and more compact, and they became so compact that it became quite difficult to understand them fully by an ordinary person. The concept that is actually dealt in a sutra is known as a prameya. The tools used to explain or justify the concept are known as the pramana, and the one who understands and explains is known as the pramata. For the Shrutis, there was the Jnana, Jnaya, and the Jnata, knowledge, the concept and the method to be used, and the knower. These were now replaced in the Darshans by the Prameya, Pramana, and the Pramata. The Pramans were of three types: Pratyaksha Pramana, Anumana, and Shabda. They had their own subcategories, which I will discuss much later. The word Pratyaksha means whatever has a visual proof. Anuman is the one that is inferred. It is an inferred proof. And Shabda is the verbal proof. Actually, it's nothing but the visual experience that a person has. Then, based on our previous experiences and knowledge, we make certain definite conclusions about whatever we see. It's like actually seeing a fire and then seeing smoke and concluding that wherever there is smoke, there should have been some fire. So that then is an anumana. And Shabda Pramana can also mean audio confirmation, like when you hear two sounds. You hear the barking, like you have heard some time back, or a lion's roar. Just listening to the sound, you can identify what it is. I don't have to actually see the object. But there is one more aspect. We can't have all possible direct experiences all the time. So information from definite sources such as the scriptures, words of the guru, words of the wise people, are also to be believed and accepted, and they are then said to be Shabda Pramana. They are said to be proof enough. But this, as I said, started getting a little more difficult. So the masters, the gurus, came up with 4 more type of works: the Bhashya, the Tika, the Vritti, and the Vrittika. These were commentaries, explanations, both in prose and poetry form. They were supplements to the original texts, and these sometimes could be very major texts and works of themselves, something like the Shankara Bhashya, for example, or Jnaneshwari, which is nothing but a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita itself. All these were used and interpreted by the disciples and followers for that particular branch of the darshan, and each of this itself then evolved, this thought process and the results evolved into a corresponding darshan. But then to be identified as a darshan, it needed to have some specific basic characteristics. It had to deal always with some specific areas as a minimum requirement. What is first one? What is the origin of the universe? How was it created? Why was it created? By whom was it created? What is the origin and the purpose of all life that we see around us? How, when and why will it all come to an end? Is there a creator? Is there a God? Is there something like Brahma? What is his or her nature? What is reality? Is there Atma? Who am I? What is my purpose? And whatever I am talking of, is that the ultimate truth? This is typically referred to as the Jnana Mimamsa. So all these aspects had to be covered. Satisfactory answers to all these concepts, many others also, like moksha, swarga, which is salvation, heaven, rebirth, dharma, karma, atma, etc., had to be also answered. Liberation and suffering and methods to overcome the suffering, to obtain eternal peace, escape from the cycle of births. All these included some of the goals of the darshan. Please realize that Indian darshans did not give any importance to profits, and God was accepted to be the most supreme for those darshans who accepted God. There was a choice even in that. That brings us to the different types of darshans. The number of different darshans according to different viewpoints could be either 6 or 9 or 12, and according to some of them a little more also. Basically, the darshans are split into 2 types: the astic or the orthodox darshan. These are 6 in number, and so they are referred to as Shad Darshan. Shad itself means 6. And the second category is the Nastic Darshan, or the heterodox, as the Western culture tends to call them. There are 3 main types in this Nastic Darshan also. Astic are those that accept the authority of the Vedas, that is the Shruti, and the Nastic are those that do not accept the authority of the Vedas. In fact, many of them oppose the Vedas themselves. Please realize that Nastic is not disbelief in God, as it is sometimes talked of in many situations that is around us. Then coming to the Astic Darshans, There are used 6 of them, as I said, but they are usually in terms of pairs. I'll give you the names to begin with today. The Nyaya Darshan and the Vaisheshik Darshan. This is a pair. The Sankhya Darshan and the Yoga Darshan, that is the second. And the Purva Mimamsa and the Uttar Mimamsa or the Vedanta is the third pair. There are some common factors in every pair, and that's why they are grouped accordingly. The proponents, the initiators of all these darshans are different. So are there supportive scriptures and texts and proofs that are given. The Astic darshans support, analyze, interpret and extend the ideas of the Shruti, that is the Vedas and the Upanishads. The Nastic darshans not only refute but are always against most of the ideas that are in the Vedas or in the Upanishads. The darshans give their own ideal interpretations of the many concepts and the list of topics that I mentioned some time back. They also include things like Purushartha, Dharma, Bhakti, ethics also. The approach of all these darshans was reinforcing the darshan's original stand and refuting all the others through debates, discussions, and this was in fact a common practice. So terms like Vad, Vivad, Vitandavad, methods of discussions and interactions, the logic and the reasoning in a highly refined form was used by all the exponents of the darshans. One more major aspect that was tackled by the darshan was to put before the society the practical realities of life. Because with Upanishads, people started getting into a stage where they felt every material viewpoint to be useless. So it was essential that some thinkers came about to propose the concept of surviving and moving through and improving the society and social structure itself. The darshans played a major role in this. Many of the people who were very high thinkers were engrossed in metaphysical aspects, scorning or going against material aspects. But for a society to survive, improve and develop, these material aspects are equally important. This practical aspect is equally important, and that is why these darshans became so important. We need to understand the basics of each of these darshans, what they are, what do they represent, and once you get an idea of what they represent and what is their overall structure, it would be possible for us and you learned people to spend your time a little more to understand this basic Indian philosophy. If you have liked whatever I have said, please like and subscribe to this channel. Keep these ideas of what darshans are, like what we talked of last time and what we have been talking of today, as a background to the number of darshans. I'll give a brief introduction to each of them next time onwards, maybe 15 days from today. Till that time, Namaskar.